What is going on, guys? Welcome back. Here with Uchi, we're going to talk about. There's a couple big stories. The first one we're going to get into, though, Javon Wims. Now, this is an evolving story. We don't know what the penalties are going to be. We're assuming there's going to be a suspension to go hand in hand with the ejection. But if you didn't know by now, Javon Wims had some time to process what took place after a situation where he may have been spit on, but he definitely got his mouth guard yanked off. And about 10 minutes later, where most fans really wouldn't completely comprehend what was going on, he walks over pretty calmly to CJ Gardner-Johnson, punches him in the helmet, which is very dumb, and then open hand kind of slaps him in the helmet as well before he gets ejected from the game. And this actually had a pretty good sequence to take place because the aforementioned passing time where Javon Wims could have chilled out and said this isn't a good idea, the referees weren't really in position to break this up right away. And then it just kind of turned into, I don't want to say an all-out brawl because it was there was so little leading up to this that we could see, I guess, is the most interesting part of it.
Yeah, honestly, I think it just kind of happened it happened out of the blue as far as other people were concerned. But Javon Wims, well, initially it looked like I think he tried to snatch the DB's chain off and then hit him. But just, really just something that you just don't do on the field. That was just, he waited forever to retaliate for whatever happened to him or whatever happened to a teammate. And he decides on a random play that he's going to just run up and assault the guy basically. And it's obviously going to put him in a very bad light because, you did that out of nowhere. You weren't provoked that anybody could tell. And now you're just throwing haymakers with which obviously punching a helmet isn't good for your hands. He switched to the open hand smack, which, that still is not going to feel very good at all. And, it really was kind of a weird, bizarre thing for other players on both teams. You could tell the other players weren't really trying to get in a fight because of it, but they were, fighting to pull these guys apart. It just was very bizarre to see it happen out of left field like that.
Yeah, normally there's some buildup, there's some tension, there's a big hit, there's a couple players come over, maybe words get exchanged, but everybody gets separated. This really was almost like you said, just out of nowhere. We're kind of piecing back together context. But let me ask you that as a former player. How long do you hold on to that animosity? If somebody does something to you that you deem is disrespectful, are you giving it 10, 15, 20 minutes? Are you saying the next time I see you, we're going to resolve this? Or are you going back to your teammates and letting them kind of calm you down? But in that situation, based on what I've seen, like you said, it looks like maybe, a chain pull like we saw with Talib in the past, definitely got a mouthpiece pulled. But nothing where even other players walked over and got between them. It looked like normal, just a little bit of after the play theatrics. You certainly didn't expect to see what has been, I would say, of all the fights I've seen on an NFL field, this one, as far as just straight physical contact, probably top 10, easily.
I think that this one for me is definitely it's a weird one. It's really weird. I don't think I've ever seen anything just pop out of the blue like that before from my playing days. But I do know that if there's a situation where a player feels disrespected, if it's a fight like a scuffle kind of situation, that's going to be immediate. If it is a kind of a chitter chat, talking back and forth, that. If it's something that they're going to try and get back at a person during the play, that comes in the next play or, over the course of the next few plays. He waited, like 10, 15 minutes to do something? Like that's enough time to actually process whether or not you're willing to take a fine or a suspension for what you're about to do. He got ejected from the game, and, he's definitely looking at a fine. That's pretty much goes without saying. But he's also potentially looking at a suspension, and really, there's nothing you can really say that's going to justify why you did things the way you did, why you waited so long to do it. And then, it just seemed like pure animosity. And it's just not something that players want on the field. It's not something that's good for the game.
Well, let me ask you this because we've seen situations like this similar, and I feel like the NFL fan response has been indifferent. So, famously, JJ Stokes got his face spit in by Bill Romanowski. There was an issue back in 2006 where Terrell Owens spit in D'Angelo Hall's face. So, fans seem to have a perspective of, hey, if you spit in somebody's face, then it's okay for there to be retaliation. And I would say if that took place, this is a nickel corner, by the way. So maybe he doesn't see him on the field right away. So I think if that can actually be proven, if he did actually spit on him, then I would say, okay, 10 minutes, I would probably still be pretty mad. I would justifiably say, not that two wrongs make a right, but I'm giving some leeway there. If he spit on him, that he can go over there and you can expect the confrontation. Just because he was standing there and not engaging in Wims, it doesn't matter. If you spit on this man 10 minutes before, you can expect to come over and handle some type of business the next time he sees you.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm looking at a couple of clips that kind of give us the chronological order and how things happen. And this is after a play. They're sitting there chattering, talking to each other. And then the DB from the Saints snatches his orange mouth guard off of his helmet. He's got one of the dangling ones that dangles off the face mask. He snatched it off. I mean, you can see that clear as day in this clip. But I mean, is that what, and they both have dangling face masks. I mean, dangling mouthpieces. I'm sorry. And it just doesn't, I mean, still, that doesn't equate to the kind of outcome that we saw with him, assaulting the dude over a snatched mouth guard. I mean, to me, that's kind of childish. That's absolutely childish. And he's going to pretty much deserve whatever punishment the NFL decides to lay out, because they're going to do something, because that was just uncalled for.
Actually, what's very interesting is if you go back and watch the actual first confrontation where Wims goes over to punch him, right? If you watch him walk up, he takes his left hand, which is not the hand he's about to punch him with. He reaches up into his face mask, and it looks like he rips his mouthpiece off back. And at that point, he, makes a very, very poor decision to punch him. And then, for what it's worth, Gardner Johnson just stands there. Like, this is the part that really bothers me to a degree, right? If you know you spit in this man's face, right? You know that you were the aggressor in all this, and then you have the audacity to stand there and act like the innocent victim while you get hit and just literally accept all the punishment. Like that's not a real good look from somebody that's supposed to be competitive. Like, if you spit on the man, own it. Understand that there's about to probably be some type of interaction. Don't just stand there like you're the most innocent victim in all of this. Like you said, he did rip his mouthpiece off, but I also think he got his mouthpiece ripped off again. And maybe this is why mouthpieces aren't in Madden, to bring everything full circle, because obviously there's a lot of respect in those mouthpieces, but I sure wouldn't want to put it back, in my friggin' face mask, or much less in my mouth, after some dude just ripped it off of me. So, I guess I can see where some of this animosity or hostility could come from. But like you said, the end result is it's such a powerful visual image of him just throwing haymakers while he's in a full helmet. The dumbest thing you could do. I mean, I probably would have opted to just grab his face mask and get him down to the ground, but he went for the theatrics and punched him with a helmet.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he went for the theatrics, hitting him in the helmet. But look, even for the fact that the Saints DB Gardner Johnson was just standing there, it's always the retaliation that's going to be called. That's what happens in football. That's what happens in life. You're speeding on the highway. There may be a car you're speeding behind. That police officer usually is getting the second person or the last person they see who's violating, the speed limit. And that's how it is in the NFL. Yeah, you may not have been the guy who started this beef, but if you decide you're going to take it there, you're likely going to be the one who gets the flag and the fine. Gardner Johnson's not getting fined, and he's not getting suspended. He's not looking at a chance of being suspended because he wasn't the one who initiate, or he wasn't the one who showed the aggressor, who had the role of the aggressor, and that is what Javon Wims did, and now he's going to be playing for free next week.
Well, I was going to say, let's assess to recap this who got hurt the most. Javon Wims' hand, Javon Wims' bank account, Javon Wims' playing time next week. Possibly, do you think this is a situation where the Bears could say, listen, all of this isn't worth you being here. We're going to go ahead and let you go. And at this point, based on, as you said, right or wrong, we don't know. We've sat here the last 10 minutes debating who's right or wrong, if there's a right or wrong. This may be a
Yeah,
situation
I
where, listen,
mean,
team doesn't want to deal with you anymore. You may be a free agent the rest of your life over something like this.
yeah, I mean, it could be worst case scenario that bad, but I would assume that, if this guy is a player who hasn't really caused trouble on the team, who hasn't been somebody who's been seen as a liability, that he'll likely, take his fine, and they'll let him, move on about his business on the team. Uh, I don't think NFL teams they don't go that far unless you just did something that is just brutally like obvious that you cannot stay on the team. Like, domestic disputes, things of that nature, you're going to be looking at being, cut and released. But with this situation, a fight on the field, in between the lines, I would assume that he's going to take his fine. That's going to be it. That's going to be the end of it. And, he'll move from there. If the NFL is going to suspend him, I think it's still the same outcome after the fact. Once that suspension is done, he continues on, and he'll be able to play with the Bears. But I think worst case scenario, the absolute worst case scenario is he could get cut. But I just don't foresee that necessarily happening over this kind of thing.
Hey, worst case scenario, if he really wants to throw hands, pack on some pounds, Greg Hardy transitioned over to the UFC. Well, I'm sure he would love to fight another former NFL player, but I don't think that's going to happen.
No, I don't think this guy. I mean, he decides to punch a helmet. He's going to punch a solid helmet with his hands. I don't think that necessarily bodes as being the sharpest tool in the shed. And it takes a little bit of craftiness to go out there and fight in the UFC. So I don't think that's a future he wants to pursue.
Yeah, you're not going to practice by punching walls there, Chief. So, with that said, we appreciate you guys checking this one out, and we will be back whenever somebody starts throwing punches in the NFL or any type of story like this breaks out with more content.